It's that time of the year again, a time where gifts are plenty, joy is abundant, and economies are booming. If parents ask their children what they would like for this special day, one of their most common answers would probably be video games. I mean, how can you blame them? But why buy just one game as a gift, when you can get many? This is where game compilations come into the picture. See, game compilations have been around for quite a while now, dating all the way back to 1994 with the release of Mega Man The Wily Wars on the Sega Genesis. It's the company's way of giving new players a chance to experience some of their greatest titles, while offering veterans a trip down memory lane with the relics of the past. A lot of people might have missed the opportunity to play some of the games that started a legacy in the industry. The best hands-on experience for these classics is playing them from the device they were released on. Playing the original Castlevania from the NES on the Nintendo Switch isn't as satisfying as playing it on an actual NES. It lacks the authenticity factor. Fun fact of the day, the authenticity factor is expensive. With one quick look on eBay typing out the gaming console of your choice, you can tell they don't sell these for cheap. You'd think that over time, the price for these devices would die down a lot. In fact, it's the exact opposite in most cases. I mean, is it worth buying a game like this, that goes for the same price as this? You're better off buying it digitally. But that's the thing, physical copies of older games are more of a luxury than a necessity these days. You can play pretty much any game from the NES either on emulators or as part of the Virtual Console and Switch Online experience. Even then, you'd have to pay for them to, not be put on the government watch list. But I digress. It's pricey to get only one NES game, with the cartridge and the box alongside it of course. Affordability is key here, so why not get a bunch of NES games for half that price? Recently, Konami has been doing these anniversary collections to celebrate their 50th anniversary. Those collections contain a slew of good games that originated on a variety of gaming devices, games from across the history of the franchise, and not just from a single console. I sometimes think that it would be absolutely amazing if other companies like Nintendo and Capcom followed suit. 3D All-Stars left a pretty sour taste in my mouth after seeing the lackluster treatment that it got as a collection. I had to wash it down with a dose of G Fuel. This video is not sponsored and this is not actually G Fuel. But seriously, come on, who wouldn't love a Zelda Anniversary Collection? Me! And for this lovely Christmas special, I will be talking about gaming franchises I would love to see get the Anniversary Collection treatment. Let's start off with the juggernaut of the gaming industry, Nintendo. Many of the games that were published on its systems were landmark titles at the time, and they set their foundations for thousands of great games to come. Metroid is a founding father of the platforming genre. It's deeply rooted in its atmosphere and exploration. No wonder you hear the term Metroidvania thrown around a lot. Metroid games are honestly some of the best things out there, and it definitely deserves a compilation that isn't a redux of the Prime Trilogy. Look no further than Metroid Anniversary Collection, a concept that I made celebrating the franchise's almost 35-year history. As part of the collection, it contains Metroid, Metroid 2 Return of Samus, Super Metroid, Metroid Fusion, Metroid Zero Mission, a remake of the first game, Metroid Samus Returns, a remake of the second game. It includes many great titles that fans know and love, a wonderful museum of everything 2D Metroid. I've only covered the games, but what about the other features a collection should have? Artwork, interviews, soundtrack, heck, even the option to play the original Japanese releases. I would buy something like this just to look at the concept art for the enemies Samus has encountered on her adventures. There are some really nice designs, like Nightmare from Metroid Fusion, or Kraid, a recurring boss in the series. I'd also like to know why Ridley's colour scheme has changed so much over the years. He's like the Santa of Metroid. Moving along, we have another franchise on our list that I've been dying to talk about, Final Fantasy. I've been playing this series for years, and a lot of the games I played were remakes or remasters of the original. Some of them looked amateurish, but Square Enix has made a big step up in the remake department as of late. As good as they are, there's no experience quite like playing the originals, so this collection aims to appease fans new and old alike. The games included are Final Fantasy, Final Fantasy II, Final Fantasy III, Final Fantasy IV, Final Fantasy V, Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy Tactics, Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, Final Fantasy Tactics Advance 2 Grimoire of the Rift, and Final Fantasy Legend Trilogy. You're probably noticing a trend with these concepts. That's right, I'm only doing 2D titles from each franchise, with a few exceptions since some of them dip their toes into 3D on the DS as well. I know a lot of your favourite games from these franchises are probably the 3D ones, since they're more recent, but I wanted to compile games that set the standards for those 3D games. There's a charm to that era of gaming which not a lot of games today can replicate, so I thought it would be a great way to represent the past. This collection, and this might apply for other ones I'll mention later, looks like one heck of a doozy to play. I agree. That's the thing, the difference between the Konami collections and this one I made up is the length of these games. Take the Arcade Classics Anniversary Collection for instance. While all of them have replay value, they only take about a few minutes, maybe an hour at best to complete. Final Fantasy games take an entire lifetime to finish. What's there to complain though? It's a wealth of content, with many of the games treasured by fans all over. I don't think there's any game in this compilation that is objectively bad. Every one of them are good in their own right. You'll have to put in a lot of legwork finding an official copy of the original SNES titles, so I feel this is the best way to play them legally, even if it isn't on the console it was released on. The gaming industry arguably wouldn't be where it is today without The Legend of Zelda, a critical and commercial success. It pioneered the action-adventure genre that many other franchises were molded from. There is actually already a Zelda compilation called The Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition, which includes the first 2 Zelda titles on the NES, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. It also comes with a playable demo of The Wind Waker, a few promotional videos, and a Wind Waker special movie. Good features, but not a lot of games. I want to remedy that. Welcome Zelda Anniversary Collection, a compilation of pretty much all 2D Zelda titles, both good and not as good. It comes with a sweet selection of games. The Legend of Zelda, The Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, The Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening, The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Ages, The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Season, The Legend of Zelda, The Minish Cap, The Legend of Zelda, Phantom Hourglass, and The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks. As popular as the franchise is, he didn't really settle on a formula to base future games on until A Link to the Past. The second one almost felt like an experiment trying to see what Nintendo could do with a new IP that quickly gained success. The best part is, you get to experience the vast history of Zelda games. There's a variety of titles, each having different gameplay elements, so no one game is the same. It's a timeline showing how the series matured from this to this. You've already got a few games from this list on the Switch Online service, but just imagine all of them in one legendary bundle. I often find that playing the earlier titles in a series makes me appreciate the newer releases even more. Having played the NES Zelda games, A Link to the Past and Spirit Tracks, I admire Breath of the Wild so much more for its innovations on the classic elements of the franchise. A collection celebrating Zelda of this caliber surely should have its extra features, right? Think about it for a second. You have access to the content featured in Hyrule Historia, art and artifacts, and the encyclopedia. That, and you get to read a selection of volumes from the Legend of Zelda manga. It truly is a bang for your buck. Fire Emblem, the series that no one likes because 8 of its characters are in Smash and a roster of like, what, 84 characters? Come on guys, it's not that big of a deal. This collection is for all you cultured weebs. That's right, I'm talking about the ones who don't play the waifu simulators of our generation. The ones who sort reset whenever they accidentally kill their army unit. The ones who hold this glorified game of chess deep in their hearts. Up until Fire Emblem Path of Radiance on the Nintendo GameCube, these games pretty much stayed in 2D. A lot of people like the P-Radiance games, so I've compiled a bunch of them for you. Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light, Fire Emblem Gaiden, Fire Emblem Mystery of the Emblem, Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War, Fire Emblem Thrasher 776, Fire Emblem Binding Blade, Fire Emblem The Sacred Stones. Yeah, a lot of those games are available only in Japan so far. Despite that, Nintendo did release an official translated version of Shadow Dragon on the Nintendo Switch. They are willing to do Western releases if there is a high enough demand for it. Since Fire Emblem is rising in popularity, especially with the release of Three Houses last year, this is a surefire way to give Westerners a proper taste of this underrated franchise and place in Japan a warm return to some of their favourite games. If Nintendo really does want to push this series into a flagship IP alongside Mario and Zelda, they could definitely start with translating the older titles. There are so many great games people are missing out on, mostly because they don't understand the language it was released in. There may have been fan translations in the past by some very talented Fire Emblem fans, but I don't think it could scale up to the joy of playing the games directly from its publisher. I myself would love to play Binding Blade, and not spend my savings on getting a Game Boy Advance only to have to learn Japanese to comprehend even a smidgen of text. Fire Emblem is quite heavy on the storytelling side after all. Dragon Quest might possibly be my favourite gaming franchise of all time. It's a damn shame that it doesn't get as much recognition here in the West. I swear I am the only person in my school who owns a copy of Dragon Quest XI. On to the collection, we have Dragon Quest, Dragon Quest II Luminaries of the Legendary Line, Dragon Quest III The Seas of Salvation, Dragon Quest IV Chapters of the Chosen, Dragon Quest V Hand of the Heavenly Bride, and Dragon Quest VI Realms of Revelation. The first 6 titles in the series that define JRPGs for decades to come. I decided not to include the 3D titles like 7, 8, 9 and some of the Dragon Quest Monsters game, as I wanted this collection to be a pure representation of the 2D era of the franchise, the classics as they say. It would be brilliant if there was an art gallery as a feature, showcasing the artwork of the monsters and characters designed by Akira Toriyama, aka Mr. Dragon Ball himself. Besides the games themselves, the option to experience the design philosophy behind some of gaming's most iconic enemies would be nothing short of amazing. Kirby Anniversary Collection, featuring Kirby's Dream Land, Kirby's Adventure, Kirby's Dream Land 2, Kirby's Superstar, Kirby's Dream Land 3, Kirby and the Amazing Mirror, Kirby's Quiz Card, Kirby's Spinner Land, Kirby's Dream Course, Kirby's Avalanche, Kirby's Taco Bell, Kirby's Presidential Election, Kirby's Return to Narnia. I don't even know anymore.
Soka.
It's wild to think about anthologies of our favourite games from the past. They might not ever happen, but just imagine a world where we could play some of gaming's finest memories all in one package. Some people might not even have the means to afford the newest releases of each franchise I've mentioned. We're not all in the same financial situation after all. These sorts of collections can give possibly hundreds of hours of playtime though. I don't think it'll be that easy to put down a classic like Metroid Fusion. It's nice to look forward to the next Zelda or Final Fantasy game. It's nice to look forward to anything in general, isn't it? But sometimes, just sometimes, it's nice to look back to the past and see what built the foundations of the games that we anticipate so much today and we find so hype-inducing. People should be grateful for the gifts they get this holiday, just as how we should be grateful for the titles that gave birth to a new generation of gaming. Merry Christmas everyone.